following podcast was brought to you by the members of the Casino Skunk Secret Society. For just $1 a month, you can unlock every audio and video episode available instantly. And don't worry about any commitments. You can quit at any time. So for just $1, you can download every single episode and then bounce out. Just head to patreon.com/casinoskunk. Hello and welcome to the Casino Skunk Secret Society, episode number 66, in which I'll be talking about episode 6 of The Mandalorian, titled The Prisoner. And today I'm joined by Alex Stewart from The Backside of Water, as well as Did You Know Disney, two podcasts that I absolutely love, and I've been a part of one. So without further ado, looks like Alex is online. Let's give him a call. Just kidding. We talked yesterday.
That was like perfect timing.
I just jumped on.
So did I. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Can you hear like a weird humming going on right now? It almost sounds like there's a cell phone buzzing or like vibrating on a table to me.
Right.
But I mean, if you don't hear it, then I guess maybe it's only in my mind.
Maybe. I spent all of the day shopping, and there was a high frequency tone that kept happening while I was listening to my radio. It would stop doing it when I turned off my fan knob in my car.
That's weird.
But it was coming through the speakers.
You know, I've actually had that happen before to me, where it almost sounds like a servo motor is running super high.
Right.
And then you shut the fan off, and I don't know if there's like an exposed wire, but yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about.
I don't know what it was. I think it had something to do with Bluetooth, because
that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I can start to obsess about it, and I'm like, that's all I hear now. So I have to like willingly let it go.
Right.
So how you been, man?
Been all right. I've had a weird day, and
yeah, how so?
I get to go to work tonight. It's my Monday. It was just a long day. Like, I had a lot of shit to do. Just like, yeah, I don't like Christmas and podcasting and doing this on a weekly basis. I mentioned this on my last episode because I my friend Jay, we were recording. I've known Jay since like 2005.
Okay.
We were both lost podcasters back then.
Oh yeah.
But like I was talking to him about like doing this show and how it's been like years since Lost went off the air, or even before then, that I did a weekly podcast covering a show, and it's just like sucking my energy to live. Like, because I still have to edit a Kaiju pod every other week, and
on top of this,
yeah, and it's just like ugh. And then it's like,
it's a lot, man.
And then like Thanksgiving was so late. And then like Christmas is already here, and it's just been like, yeah, it's been a slog. And then also
I get it, man. I get it.
I mean, this episode could start the same way, because this is how it went the last time we started dovetailing into Star Wars. So he said, "I'll just leave that other stuff in," but like my excitement for The Mandalorian is through the roof. And has been like getting diminishing returns with each episode.
Oh, you're feeling that effect.
And I'm like, I don't even feel like finishing out the last 3 episodes as far as the podcast goes. I mean, I'm gonna, obviously, but it's just like, I had people drop off. I mean, I contacted you last minute. I've had people drop off, and then just like, I usually just watch the show to enjoy it. Which is fine. It's fun to watch, but I dread watching it a second time to take notes.
Really? What is it about it that you don't like?
Nothing's happening. And it's like, I get it. It's not serialized, which I would rather have it serialized. It's not really the case. It's like an old episode of, I keep saying, Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
Where he shows up into a town, helps the person he's helping, or I guess like Shazam.
It's very episodic. It's not serialized in that way.
Which is fine. But if you're going to do episodic, the individual single stories need to be more interesting, and they're just not. There's not. And I think a lot of this has to do with Watchmen.
Explain.
Watchmen is my favorite show since Lost.
Oh, wow.
And Watchmen is unbelievable storytelling.
Which I think that it makes sense because Damon Lindelof's the showrunner, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So then that totally makes sense that those two things click perfectly with you.
The writing on Watchmen is astounding, and the finale was last night. 9 episodes, in and out, boom. So many things going on, so many threads, all of this stuff coming together. It's amazing. And then here you have a Star Wars show, and they haven't made. This is the first time they made a live action Star Wars show ever. And you've had 40 something years to come up with the greatest Star Wars show ever, and it's an episodic show where the main character's motivations are up in the air. I don't like. After the first episode, I knew what the show was going to be. This guy's going to do everything he can to protect this baby, even go outside of his Mandalorian culture's way of life and protecting it at all costs. To the last 2 episodes, he just leaves it in his ship and walks away to do a job. And it's like, what are you? What are you going to be? You know, I understand that you can't have him walking around with the baby all the time, but if that's the story you set up, then you got to deal with it.
I think that what needs to happen, because I totally agree in some aspects. I totally agree with you in some areas. I think that the child needs to have a caretaker that's there. I loved the character of Amy Sedaris in the previous episode.
Right.
That was great because she was there to serve as a caretaker while the Mandalorian went out and did what he needed to do.
Right.
But there does seem to be some sort of and here's what I'll also say though, in justification of it, I almost feel like there's a 3 men and a baby Full House thing going on in a weird way, that the Mandalorian is not only learning to be a protector but also being a nurturer. And he's learning these are things that you do, things that you don't do. And again, the Sedaris character brought that to light heavily, and I appreciated that a ton, even though there wasn't a lot that happened in that gunslinger episode. I thought she deepened the story a little bit, or at least the dynamic, saying, Mandalorian, you can't be such a dummy and just leave this kid alone like this.
Right.
So I appreciated that.
Right.
But I will say this. I think that for me, I really like The Mandalorian. Yeah. I really love the direction that it's taking. And I think because it is a series like this and they're releasing weekly, I'm almost okay or more okay with a slow burn.
Right.
And I feel like that's what we're getting. I think that we're also at a crossroads where there are some people who are going to say this is a slow burn, or there are also people on the other side that aren't looking at it on a positive side. They're just saying it's meandering and it's fizzling out.
Yeah.
And the problem is we have no clue. We have no clue right now.
Right.
If it's a slow burn, then the payoff's going to hopefully be at the end of the season. But if it's meandering and it's just going down the sinkhole, then it's just the 1,000 years in the belly of the Sarlacc at this point. We're just in the first 5 episodes, 6 episodes of that digestive process.
Right. And that's the thing, is I feel like I would want to know, like, if it is going to be like, if it is serialized, awesome, which this isn't. It doesn't feel serialized, except for the overarching story of the child, I guess is what we're calling it. There's not enough in there. There's not enough about the guild tracking him. There's no main villain. We saw in episode 5 a shadow kind of show up and look at the body of the Ming-Na Wen's character.
I'm assuming she's Imperial. That's what it looked like to me, is that she was a runaway Imperial. Is that just me?
I don't know. Her mask kind of reminded me of the oh shoot, what are their names? They were in the Rebels. The sister.
Oh, this like the seventh sister, second sister, ninth sister, whatever. The
Yeah,
Inquisitors, Inquisitorius. Is that what they're called?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
The helmet kind of reminded me of that, but I don't think it had the red in it.
Yeah.
I don't. That's the thing, is I don't know, and I don't really need my Star Wars to over-explain everything. But I feel like the amount of time given to the Mandalorian just walking around and being in environments, I think we should get some sort of information about what's happening elsewhere. Like I think to focus on a main villain would be great. I know that sort of the Grief Karga character, Carl Weathers, is sort of an overarching nemesis, and he was kind of brought up in this episode a little bit.
Yes, but do you think he's a worthy opponent? Truthfully,
No, we've already seen them go head to head in episode 4.
and he was kind of weak sauce in my opinion.
So what do we? Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, I don't know. There needs to be some focus or something, like either on the overarching story or on an individual episode level. Like, if you're not going to be serialized, if this is going to be like a procedural, you should be doing stuff kind of on the level of like a Twilight Zone. Take these stories, and this will be like the horror story. Like they kind of did that with Clone Wars a little bit, where they would kind of mess with genres to do sort of these short stories, because there's a large overarching Clone Wars serialization from season to season, but for the most part you would get like 2-episode chunks or 3-episode storylines, and I feel like these aren't interesting. Like, just because I'm seeing Star Wars doesn't make me like it.
Well, and that's what I was actually going to bring up, is I feel like Filoni's interest, or like fingers, are all over this. That it feels very much, and again, only being 6 episodes in, it's hard to tell. And I think that that's one of the things that eventually the mainstream did not like about the Clone Wars, is there were 3-4 episode chunks that would follow a main story arc, but then there were little one-offs where you would follow Ahsoka trying to get her lightsaber back, and then you would have the whole Mandalore plot come through, which is 3-4 episodes of great story. And so I think that part of me almost feels like we're getting that, but at the same time, we don't have the history of the Clone Wars as a whole, because I think that you can only appreciate that about the Clone Wars once you have a full season or even a couple of seasons to understand that that's almost the gimmick. That's the machine and how it works. But we really don't understand how this show works yet.
Right. And I think that's one of the things with Filoni, both with Rebels and Clone Wars. It took a good 15 episodes, almost even the first season, for me to kind of get the footing and get into it. But when you have a 8-episode season like The Mandalorian, and especially with the first episode being so strong and setting up what the show is, I was hoping that we wouldn't get that sort of Filoni kind of slow build-up.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that for me, I guess the question that I have for you is, where did the show lose your interest?
It's hard to say, because the first episode was amazing. If you listen to any of these Mandalorian podcasts, you could hear my excitement. The first 2 weeks were very, very excited. The 4th episode, I believe, was the one where he takes the baby back. I'm starting to get mixed up. The second one is the one with the Mudhorn and the egg. The third episode, I believe. The
third is where he takes it back.
Okay, so the third episode where he takes it back, he talks to the Mandalorians. He says once you get to your bounty, you are done with your job. He goes back, takes the baby back, keeps his bounty, and sort of goes against their code. And it's like, okay, this is awesome. This is the lengths he'll go to protect this child. And so I was still on board for that episode. The next episode, where he was on the planet Sukar, it's the one with Gina Carano.
Mm-hmm. That was, in my opinion, that was the penultimate. I loved that episode.
Right. I enjoyed that episode, and it added more to the Mandalorian as far as personally what's going on in his life. He had just broken the code of the Mandalorian. He's on this planet that's out of, the reach of anybody. There's no spaceports on it. It's somewhere where he can retire and have a good life. It's a good place for the baby to be. He's practically ready to take his helmet off in front of people. Like, he's ready to give up his life. So it's kind of a nice little thing. It's a good story, and it kind of gives you insight to the character. The last 2 episodes, we don't get much of that. He just goes out and does these 2 jobs, both on Tatooine and then on this
prison ship,
prison transport by the New Republic. So it's kind of like the last 2 episodes have kind of been like, what are you trying to, like? I feel like these episodes could all be shuffled around, which is fine, but these last 2 just are just not doing it for me, because it's not building his story arc. It's not telling me what he's about. And, like I had a good grasp by episode 4, what he wanted. And he doesn't feel like he's forced away from that life. Like, especially, it just feels like he's landing in places to do a job. I know in the 5th episode, we open up with him being attacked by another starship, and he kind of gets damaged and gets forced to go on Tatooine. Mm-hmm. And that kind of leads him to go get more money, to do a job to get more money to fix the ship. But we saw that in episode 2. When the Jawas messed up his ship, he had to do a job for him, then he fixed it. And so it's like something new. I need something new. And I don't. And then this episode, I don't know why he landed on that ship at the beginning. Why is he there? Why is he picking up this job?
I think that's a good question, but I also think that there are answers to that. At least from my perspective, I feel like with this episode 6, what is it called? The Prisoner, I believe was the title. With episode 6, I feel like we see we see more of the Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. We see a previous love interest, or at least an implied love interest.
Right.
And we also see this band of ne'er-do-wells that he used to be a part of, and we see that he is decidedly a different human being. And so, to me, I look at as far as story development goes, this is us seeing through the fact that through the reality that we only have a certain lens on the Mandalorian. This is almost the juxtaposition that we have of the old Mandalorian now with the new Mandalorian, and whether or not that was the child that's changed him, or if it's just, kind of sick of the same old BS life or whatever has changed him. We see a decided change because, the whole it was just business, but then she brings up and says, but you took pleasure in it. I'm assuming that it was locking her brother up or leaving her brother behind. Is that what you gathered from that whole interaction, that's what was business to him?
It sounded like it, because once they free him, the brother says, essentially, I was caught because of you, and now you're my savior. Yeah.
And that's where I guess, again, I look and say, well, that's kind of a scumbaggy thing that none of those people in that gang are trustworthy whatsoever.
No.
But now you see the Mandalorian separating himself even further from his old life.
Right.
And so that's where I saw some of the value, at least from the larger story. I think what's kind of happening is they're probably assuming a 5-season run of this show.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, they think that they have plenty of time to build this kind of stuff out. But the thing that I don't know if they're prepared for is the fact that I think they're already losing fans as we speak.
Right.
Because at least for me, I dig a little bit online, but not a huge deep dive with some of this stuff. But even just the surface that I scratched, it was pretty much unanimous praise outside of, those who have their deep headcanon out there.
Yeah.
But everybody loved that first two episodes.
Right.
But now you hear a lot of people saying exactly what you're bringing up. Yeah. Go somewhere, become something. Don't just be this analogous thing floating in the ether.
Right. I don't know. I just feel, and I'm not. I don't want to rewrite the show. I don't want to. They're artists and they're doing their thing, but it really does. I really do feel like as soon as the baby's introduced in this episode, that should be his concern.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. He kind of just lets Bill Burr hold the baby.
Which was weird. That was a weird interaction.
Right? And I feel like what we've learned so far, he wouldn't allow that to happen. He would take those guys out right away.
Well, I see. I don't know. I almost feel like there was something inside of the Mandalorian. Maybe I'm just reading way too much into this, but I feel like there was. It was almost like. Forgive me for bringing this analogy into this, but Danny Zuko in Grease.
Okay.
That here he is trying to be macho for his buds. But in reality, he's wanting to go over to, what's her name, Sandy or whoever it is. Mm-hmm. My wife loves that movie. I've watched it like 3 times, and I still don't know the character names. But I think that it applies here, that he's trying to be, macho for this old group of people. And so I think that's almost why he allows that. But then, I mean, when he blasts the droid at the end, he kind of puts his foot down and says, "This far, no further." In that way.
Right. And it's interesting that he took this job considering there was a droid involved. Because that's the one thing we've known so far is he is anti-droid.
Which I'm very curious. Is that a Mandalorian thing in general? I don't know the lore around.
If you watch the flashbacks, his family was taken out by super battle droids.
Okay.
So it takes place around the time of the Clone Wars. And so that's probably why he's anti-droid. In that episode, the last flashback we saw, I believe it was episode 4, we see him run into a cellar and a super battle droid
hiding it there.
And a super battle droid opens it up. So who knows what happened after that point, if he was taken to a detention center by the battle droids. But I feel like that's the genesis of his hatred toward droids, which is a good reason. And it's stuff like that I like. It's a little, where it's like they give you little bits and pieces to learn about the character. And I guess this episode does have some of it, but I feel like it just, as far as progressing the story, which I believe is supposed to be him protecting this baby and him trying to outrun the guild, like it doesn't seem like he's in any rush.
It doesn't seem like there's anybody following him. That's the thing that I feel is with a great story, especially with a chase like this. Mm-hmm. And again, that's where we last saw it, was in episode 4, where he's about to settle down, and then you see the child in the crosshairs.
Right.
And that's when you're like, ooh, let the games begin.
Yeah.
But the games never went anywhere.
No.
At least they haven't for these 2 episodes. But again, can we see these 2 as world-building episodes? I mean, do you think that it's justifiable to call them world-building episodes?
like I said, just because you show me Star Wars, I don't know. Like, we know there's scum and villainy, and we know he's had a past, and he's worked all over the galaxy, and so it's hard to figure out what they're trying to convey in this episode for me.
What purpose do they serve?
Right.
I don't disagree with you. I definitely don't disagree with you. I mean, again, I think that I'm willing to see where it goes
Right.
because Jon Favreau's not an idiot.
Right.
This guy is a phenomenal storyteller. He's a phenomenal storyteller.
It's not. Is it a coincidence that he did not write the last two episodes?
I do find that to be compelling. And I will say that I think that episode 6, I think The Prisoner, again, I'm not an award-winning filmmaker, but it was a sloppy episode.
Right.
It was a sloppy directorial move, in my opinion, though for some reason a lot of people were praising his directorial style in this. I found it to be meandering, long, and pointless in a lot of areas. I mean, I would define this episode as Bill Burr walking through empty corridors. That's
Right.
how I would define the episode.
Right.
And everybody was talking about what a bold move it is to have Bill Burr. He does not belong in the Star Wars universe. I'm just throwing that out there. That was a weird, weird world for me.
Well, the thing is, I don't really follow him, so it didn't really matter to me that much, and I'm fine with characters like that. Like I actually enjoyed him. I think the only thing I know of him is seeing like clips on Conan's Instagram or something, like being interviewed, or like animated GIFs on the Tonight Show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've never seen any of his comedy specials. If I have if I've ingested any of his content, it would have been through an audio podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen him in a TV show, a movie, a stand-up special.
Which neither have I. I'm not a Burr boy or anything like that. I don't know what his fans are called, but
if I did hear that he is very anti-Star Wars.
Exactly.
And I know he's friends with Jon Favreau, and I knew that going into it, and that kind of, for me, added to his character. Because
in what way?
So he does he makes a couple of references. He mentions Canto Bight slot machine. He says that's what his ship looks like. He asks if he's a Gungan under his helmet.
Yes.
And then the other one, there's like a jokey one where he talks about the New Republic pilot's shoes matching his belt.
So is he a metaphor for all hated Star Wars things?
But what I like about it is knowing that he hates Star Wars, that they made him say these things without him probably knowing what they were. And I found
that would be brilliant if they did that.
Like they gave him Star Wars-y things to say, just because they forced him to, like, Jon Favreau's good friends and made him be on this show or whatever he did to be in Star Wars. Like, this is the last place he wants to be is in Star Wars, or the last place he thought he'd be is in Star Wars. But it fits his character, and I like that they gave him a lot of real Star Wars-y things to say. I thought the character was fine. I did not care for the Twi'lek.
She was weird.
Yeah,
it was
a little too
reptilian in the slithering and the sizzling sounds that she made.
Felt like a Mortal Kombat character.
I could totally see that. She would definitely have a finish him at the end of the episode.
And then Clancy Brown, who I love, Clancy Brown, was so Clancy Brown in this. He and his design, where he looked like the devil, is totally in canon. Like, we saw a character like that in the original Cantina, so that's fine. But it was like I found him more distracting than Bill Burr, but that's just because I know Clancy Brown enough.
See, I couldn't place him. I'm IMDbing this Clancy Brown.
So you know Clancy Brown, he was the warden in Shawshank Redemption. He was the bad guy in Highlander.
Oh.
He's the voice of who's Plankton, Mr. Plankton in Mr. Krabs
In SpongeBob, right?
He's been on the Green Lantern animated series. He's the voice of Parallax in the Green Lantern movie. He's been in a million things, a lot of voiceover work.
Yes.
He's great.
Okay, so now that I see his face, it definitely rings a bell.
Right. But
I don't know. I felt like the whole gang was just funky.
Well,
I'll say the only person who I loved in there is the bro from Sons of Anarchy, the guy who puts the whole thing together. I liked him.
Right. Yes. He felt very Star Wars-y. He felt like he fit. What the thing is though, like, so the end credits, they do this amazing thing where they show like the production art and the previs stuff. And seeing the gang together in those images was awesome. I'm like, oh, those guys look cool. I'd like to see a thing with them. And then I was like, oh, I just did. I was okay. Wait. I was okay with them. I feel like
I
they
got
were
a
all
Suicide Squad vibe to me. That's what it felt like. It was the B team, is what it felt like.
It was too many big personalities with no kind of leader, and I feel like the Mando could have sort of taken the reins a little bit more. I don't know. Okay, so
now with all this conversation, it sounds like I hate this show, but I love it.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I'm watching every episode. I mean, that's gonna happen, and I definitely want it to culminate into something jaw dropping. But like the last 2 episodes have really kind of left me a little bit sour. I mean, I still love it. I still love Star Wars, but yeah, I just like if you watch The Watchmen, it is unreal storytelling, and you watch this and it's like not. And I feel like if this show ended before Watchmen started, I'd still be on board. Like if I hadn't watched an episode of The Watchmen yet, I'd be like, man, Mandalorian's great. There's a couple things I had questions about. Maybe you can help me out with this. The first one I don't think you could answer, but the New Republic is using mouse droids, which
I thought the exact same thing. Interesting. I was like, are we just reapplicating the droids from the Empire right now?
I don't know. Like I feel like, and once again, I don't want to say how it should be written or should be done, but maybe if it was like a New Republic mouse droid, like if it wasn't the black mouse droid we're used to, maybe if it was like a little different body styling, or if it was white or a different color, or you know what I mean, like something. It was just weird.
Absolutely.
It was a plain old mouse droid and it made the same sounds as it did in Star Wars. So it was like, it was a little weird. Maybe the New Republic kind of took a lot of stuff with them, like acquired a lot of the things. I don't know.
Which I could see financially that would be a reason why they would do that. But you would think that, I mean, I don't want this to sound harsh at all, but it would almost be like the American military taking over Nazi vehicles and not even scrubbing the swastika off the side, and just be like, we're just taking this. And I'm like, do you guys? It almost felt like I don't remember who directed the episode, had no idea the weight that little droid carries with him as far as implication goes.
It's the same director as episode 2. Glenn Fukunaga?
Yeah, I cannot pronounce his name for the life of me.
He is one of the X-Wing pilots.
X-Wing pilots, yes. And so is Filoni, right?
And Deborah Chow, who
who is she?
She directed the, oh my gosh, which one? The 3rd episode. The one where the Mandalorians come to the rescue. Which was an excellent episode.
Which was a great episode.
And she's taking over the she's running the Obi-Wan series,
Ooh.
which is great.
Okay.
Which
I
is
think
great.
that's justified.
Okay, so well, first of all, the X-wings sounded like X-wings, but for some reason they looked like they were out of like the PS2 or PS1 Rebel Assault series.
I could see that.
They looked a little cheap. Maybe
I
I
think
was
they
just
took them from Rogue Squadron from the Nintendo 64.
maybe, but maybe it's because Filoni took me out a little bit. But I mean, I can't blame the guy. If I had any
Yeah.
sort of like involvement with Star Wars, I would say please get me in a flight suit and put me in a, well, I'd say Y-wing, but put me in a Rebel starfighter.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, and I guess one thing that I wonder about with that episode, did you feel almost like there was something sinister about those New Republic ships showing up? I was like, oh, what are these fighters had a different ominous feel to them than being thankful.
I think that is part of the direction, is that they sound quiet and cold. We're usually used to X-wing pilots like kind of amped up and in a battle and yelling out commands to each other. We've never seen them casually stroll up to an area, except for like Luke Skywalker going to Dagobah. So when he's in the X-wing, he's talking to R2 in a normal speaking voice, and they were speaking in normal speaking voices as opposed to taking heavy fire from Star Destroyers and TIE fighters. So they felt a little subdued.
It almost felt like fish in a barrel sort of feel to me.
Right. But it sounded like what they were saying is they were like kind of inspecting the area where the tracking beacon was. And then they said the only reason why they attacked is because an armed fighter was taking off from the hangar. And so they shot that fighter down, but I think they ended up taking out the whole station.
Which I do think is interesting, though, because we don't see their cruiser explode fully, do we? It just ends with them shooting basically that docking area, right?
Yeah, which would make them, I mean, like more sympathetic, I guess. It would make sense with as far as the New Republic. One of our guys has a distress beacon at this location, and an armed ship is leaving this hangar towards us. So they took that out. But I swear there was one shot where the whole station was exploding.
I see, because I'll need to rewatch it, because what I was thinking is now Mandalorian has not only the guild going against him, but now he's got his old buddies still out to get him,
right,
who they could potentially still be alive.
Right.
And so to me, I was like, okay, this is building up an entire galaxy against the Mandalorian and the child, which I'm fine with. I think that's actually kind of cool. But one question that I have for you, Ralph, is do you feel like Star Wars builds us up as fans to be almost wary of any authoritarian character in this galaxy? Because I feel like now that the New Republic is set in place in this, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I like you guys.
Right. It's hard to say because I've never been like a fan of the Empire. I know that even a lot of people are like into Sith and Empire and they're cool looking and stuff. I was always a big fan of the Rebels. I was always a big fan of Jedi. I always gravitated towards good guys. So when I see them, I think they're good guys. So that could be just me, accepting their propaganda.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I think that's fair.
But I never really thought of them as bad guys. When they did approach, like I said, I do feel like I agree they felt a little ominous, but I think that's only because we're not used to seeing X-Wing fighters communicating to each other in a non-stressful situation.
I could see that. And the thing that I think is also a little interesting and was a little jarring to me about that is you really only see them on the defensive throughout the entire saga. And this, again, albeit it was a defensive move at the end, it was almost like they were, I mean, obviously they were standing their ground and going and defending their territory of sorts.
Right.
And that's just a different feel for an X-Wing. I'm not used to that. I'm always used to them being on the defensive instead of in the authoritarian offensive in that way. And so again, maybe that's not their intention. Maybe that's just my weird psychologizing this entire thing.
Yeah.
But that was just something that really stood out to me as almost unsettling in a way.
Yeah. 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 I was happy to see X-Wings.
Agreed.
And it was very interesting that they just shot into that hangar,
and they were just very casual about it. It was very casual. They're like, "Oh, it's launching, okay," and then they were just dropping blaster fire left and right.
Right. And do you think it should have been directed better or acted better, or do you think maybe there should have been a little more urgency? Like, I feel like if they're responding to a signal, they should be a little more questioning about each other. What do you see down there? I don't know what's going on. Look, there's a ship.
They seemed a little trigger happy to me.
Yeah.
That's just that's my thought.
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't wait for that ship to come out. They didn't, And
if anything, it was 1 against 3 in that way.
Like even when the Falcon approaches Cloud City, the twin pod cloud cars contact the Falcon and say, "What's your intentions?"
Yes.
Like I don't know. Yeah, it felt weird.
So again, I think you bring up a really good question. Is what we're reading into this intentional within the world, or is it just poor storytelling in that way? Or I should say misdirected storytelling. And I don't know if there's a way for us to figure that out until we see more from this show. Because to be completely honest, this is the first time that we've seen anything from the New Republic.
Right. And who knows, the New Republic, who knows who these pilots are? Are these pilots, ex-stormtroopers?
Yeah. Yeah.
The rebellion was small.
And if they're reallocating the mouse droids, how do we know that they aren't, reprogramming stormtroopers? I think that's a really interesting and compelling. I mean, we're diving deep into expanded universe here and fan theories, but I think that I would love to see a world where, I mean, the last time we see the New Republic is it getting blown up from Starkiller Base,
right?
So hopefully we'll be able to see something in between.
Right. Because right now, the only thing we've seen as far as the New Republic goes is we've heard talk of currency and what kind of like works in the New Republic. We've seen stormtroopers that clearly were either abandoned or jumped ship, and now they're sort of mercenaries working for Werner Herzog's character.
Yes.
Like they're definitely not maintaining their outfits in some sort of Imperial outpost. They're kind of out there. They've gone rogue. So I don't know. Maybe they're not happy with the New Republic. Maybe we're not supposed to be happy with the New Republic. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. So far, we've only seen these 3 pilots and the guy who's driving the prison ship. So who knows?
And that is one thing that I find very compelling is the Herzog character. I almost found him and whatever he was working with as the overarching villain of the story. But we haven't seen hide nor hair of him since episode 2. And
he was in episode
3. Episode 3. I apologize.
Same with Grief Karga, except we did see him in a
little blip.
Zero was looking at him on the hologram, but then Zero gets shot and destroyed. I don't know if the Mandalorian can access him.
Well, and was that the old message? Was he getting an old message coming through, or was that a new transmission? That's what I was confused by.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think that there's enough answers.
Right.
I think they're trying now to keep people on the line, and they believe that suspense is the way to do that. But I think that they're not creating suspense. I think they're almost creating frustration now.
Yeah.
Which is a problem. I mean, it is a problem as far as the story arc goes. I'll say this, though. The reason why I'm still on board with The Mandalorian is, and you and I have talked about this through text messages, I am a diehard Firefly fan. Yeah. I love Firefly. And I know that you're not a huge fan of it, which we'll get you there. We'll get you there. But that's what I feel every single time I watch one of these episodes. It gets me stoked that it almost feels like they've resurrected my favorite show that died after 14 episodes.
Right.
And it's the worlds that they build.
I think one of the things that works with that show is you have a solid group of characters.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And The Mandalorian has no one to play off of. And like, I liked him with Gina Carano.
I was hoping she was going to stay.
I liked him with Amy Sedaris. I did not like him with these four.
No.
So it's like he needs to have a crew or something.
Is that where it's leading to? Is he finding his quote unquote tribe of sorts?
He keeps leaving him behind. I would be fine if Nick Nolte was with him the whole time.
Yes.
Or if Baby Yoda could do something or be involved with his story a little bit more, you know, like it was. Was it the last episode where he says at the end something about, like, I told you this was going to be a bad idea?
Where the Mandalorian says that?
He says that to Yoda, baby. When they leave Tatooine, he says, I told you it was going to be a bad idea to go there.
Is that a conversation that Yoda actually has with him, or is it more of him like talking to a droid the droid just beeping and booping back at him?
I don't know. It could be that, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Like, is Yoda guiding this thing, or the baby, the child, whatever? There needs to be more between them or something. It's something, I don't know. He needs someone to bounce off of that's positive.
Mm-hmm. I agree. He needs an ensemble. Star Wars has been about ensemble from the very start.
Right.
And everything, I mean, think about it. Every single mainline show, film, series, whatever it may be, I think you hit on a huge point there, that it's all about the ensemble, the cast of characters. Mm-hmm. I mean, Solo, Rogue One, all of those, right, even though they're Star Wars stories, focused not just on Jyn Erso, right, or focused on Han Solo. It showed the crew. You're absolutely right. I think that is without a doubt, the Achilles heel of The Mandalorian right now, is we don't have. I mean, they stack the deck against themselves in that way, which I'll be curious to see if they can pull themselves out, because a lot of people have been complaining that The Mandalorian is incapable of showing emotion, obviously because of the armor.
But in the first few episodes, even in episode, I think 4, like you could still get the emotion conveyed through the helmet. Like,
I agree.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I just
But what I think is they've stacked it also that now he doesn't have a clan. He doesn't have a crew to either support him or to fight against him, to contradict him, right, to cause any sort of tension. The only tension that we're getting is exterior tension now. And I feel like that is another huge thing, is from the first few episodes, we understood that there was an internal conflict going on inside the Mandalorian. And I feel like he's already resolved that internal conflict, and as a result, he's not as dynamic a character, right, from a story perspective.
Right. Yeah, you need that Winston Zedmore to explain to the audience what the other characters are thinking or why they're saying stuff or why they're going to places. You need a like Luke Skywalker is important because this is a new universe to him. He hasn't left his home before, and so you need the Obi-Wan character, you need the Han Solo character and the Princess Leia character to show you these different sides of the galaxy, and they kind of form who he is. You know, the Mandalorian, you have nobody for him to play off of to let us know, you know, how he's being molded. I think that's what's good about episode 4 is you had that character to show this is the life you can have.
Mm-hmm.
And that was enough for us to understand what his conflict is. You really
I think
didn't have anything like that in this episode or the previous one.
And I think that it almost feels like with 5 and 6, what has happened is he's lost a goal. I mean, where are they going in the galaxy? We have no idea. Right. Now they're just kind of and they aren't even running. Again, like we said, we haven't seen anything where they're hot on heels. Right. And so they are just kind of they're moseying
right.
Until they run out of fuel. And we've got 2 more episodes of this.
Because before he went to Tatooine, we saw him get attacked by the ship. It busted his ship, so he had to go to Tatooine, which was close. Where was he going before he got stuck near Tatooine?
I don't think that it doesn't specifically say. It just says he's running, right? Because that's right after they left his little home terraformed planet or whatever.
Like even as he was leaving I'm going to forget the
we'll call it the grass planet.
No, what's the planet? What's the planet where for crying out loud, Navarro. Navarro's the planet where Werner Herzog is.
Yes.
When he left that planet, there's the Mandalorian outside his window and gives him a salute.
Uh-huh. And he says that I have to get me one of those jetpack things.
Right.
Yeah.
It could have been a line saying, "You should go to the blank system."
Yes.
There you will. There's where our ancestors are from. You'll be able to find safe passage there.
Exactly.
That's all you need to do, and then you open up the next episode, and he's getting shot at or whatever.
Well, and I think from a storytelling perspective, there are 2 routes that one can take. I think that that's a great route, but I think that from somebody who's writing a story, in my opinion, I think that's a more noble route because it tells you the trajectory.
Yeah.
Whereas without having that, they could say, "Oh, we could have 19 seasons of this where it's just the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda out having some follies in the galaxy."
For the time being, you could have a goal or an endpoint for season 1.
I think it needs to.
There needs to be an Emerald City or an Alderaan or something, so the audience knows this is all culminating to this one thing. In the Watchmen show, you learn about halfway through that this character, Lady True is her name, is going to start up this Millennium Clock. It's just gigantic clock. We don't know what it does, but we know it's going to happen. And as the episodes go on, you're like, okay, everything's going to culminate. All these storylines are going to come together around the time of this clock going off. And that's exactly what happened in the finale. They turn the clock on. So we kind of know, you kind of get a sense of where everything's going.
Which I will say that is so very vintage Lindelof. You look at Lost, you look at Tomorrowland, they all are based around time sequences. I think that's fascinating.
But that's what's great about Lost is the first season, somewhere around halfway through, they start building a raft. And so that becomes the thing. And then you learn about the others. Right. You learn about the others. And as you're going, there's this sort of ticking clock, and you're like, okay, the end of the season is going to culminate with the raft and the others, and it does. Season 2 is all about the hatch, which is really a bunker, but we're not going to get into that right now. Stop calling the bunker a hatch.
Bunker.
Right. and it's all about this thing.
That's truly a Lost fan's big gripe.
Yeah, don't call it a hatch. Stop calling it a hatch. You blew the hatch up. The hatch is destroyed. You can now call it what it is, which is a bunker. But the whole season, you're like, what happens if we don't press this button? And so you're like, you're waiting for that to happen. You know, by the end of this season, that's the thing that's going to happen. So you kind of get this, you know, you get something to like go for and grasp. You want to be in the same journey. You want to be on the same journey as your characters. You want to know what their motivation is and what their drive is, and you're not getting that with this. We don't know why we know why he stopped on Tatooine, because that's where he happened to get his ship shot up. We don't know why he landed in this docking bay. We have no idea. He just did. And there's guys there that knew him and know that he has heat on him. Maybe it's a safe place. I don't know, but then it's just like, oh, go do a job. It's really hard to. There needs to be a focus.
There's no goal. Again, there's no goal. No. And if you think about it, I mean, it's so very clear that every Star Wars story follows Joseph Campbell's hero's journey.
Right.
And that's the biggest element of a hero's journey is having that end goal point, that transformation that occurs. And here, I was always assuming from the start of this series that the transformative goal for the Mandalorian was both intrinsic and extrinsic in the fact that he needed to find a safe haven for Baby Yoda. He needed to find Baby Yoda's family. He needed to find answers about Baby Yoda. He needed to find something about that child. And then intrinsically, he needed to heal the wounds from the PTSD of his childhood, from the cutthroat nature of his past. And because, I mean, let's be honest, they did that all the way up to episode 4. Episode 4 said you're not worthy of getting to the green pastures of Valhalla yet.
Right.
If you did, you would be staying here, but you still have demons that you need to work through, and Baby Yoda still has demons that are chasing him. So you cannot get that safe passage yet, which I thought was great because in a way it actually gives you the end goal by episode 4.
Right.
But it doesn't give you the map that you need to follow in order to fully come full circle in that journey to be able to return home of sorts.
And then the another thing is the second episode we see the baby using the Force.
Yes.
And it's a big question mark for the Mandalorian that hasn't been brought up again. It almost showed up this episode.
But it was a red herring.
Right. And so, like, from that moment on, like, these are the things I want to see the Mandalorian try to figure out. Like, whether he's looking for safe passage, whether he's looking for a homeworld for the baby. I mean, we as fans understand that Yoda was supposedly the last of his species. Does the Mandalorian know that? Would he think about hunting down a planet or doing research on this baby that can lift mud horns?
Yeah.
And maybe like see if he can find that planet. So
finding origins.
Right. And there's instead we get an episode with some bad guys shooting up robots, and it's like that's. And
the voice of Anakin Skywalker from the Clone Wars in blue shoes.
Listen, if you tell me that there's a TV show that's a Mandalorian shooting at robots, I would be like, that's amazing. But we're at the point where we need information. And we have there's 2 episodes left.
It has been they've ordered season 2 though, right?
Yeah. It's already they're shooting it.
But the question is, I mean, for me, I know what the answer is to this question. The question is, are people going to stick around to see season 2?
They will probably treat Disney Plus as like an a la carte thing. It's kind of what I would do with HBO, where when the shows, like I didn't watch Game of Thrones
Uh-huh.
And there's like a couple of the shows I didn't watch. So when it was like that time of year, I would pause my account.
Uh-huh.
And then when shows came back, I would start it back up again. So I could
I'll
see people doing that.
Because, I mean, to me, to be completely honest, none of the things that we've talked about here are deal breakers for me.
No.
To me, they're just little gripes here and there. I'm still captivated by the world. I'm still captivated by what's going on. They've given me enough. And again, I think that I don't want to throw stones, but I feel like it would be hypocritical of Lost fans to give up on this show, because Lost meandered there for a while.
Right. There were some issues with season 3 for sure.
But it fixed itself. It righted itself, and we got, outside of the last season, in my opinion, we got a really, really great show. And so I think that could be the same thing that we're maybe seeing here. But again, I mean, and I don't know this. I don't know this for sure. Maybe you have more insight. Is Favreau the ultimate showrunner who has written the overarching storyline that's going to be followed, or is that up in the air?
I'm assuming he's
because that's
still
what I was
involved.
under the impression.
He's still involved with season 2 because he posted a picture of the helmet on his Instagram, and it said like day 1 of season 2. So he's still around. I'm assuming.
Because I heard that he was actually directing episodes in season 2. But I wasn't sure if it was a writing team or if he was the keeper of the story on this.
It sounds like he's essentially the George Lucas of this, where George Lucas produced Empire and Jedi and had someone else direct it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that. Here's the thing. We still haven't gotten Taika Waititi's episode. And we talked about the directing on this episode. If it doesn't work on his episode, then something's up.
Wait, is he the Jojo Rabbit director?
Correct. And he did Thor Ragnarok, Hunt for the
Which
Wilder
I'll
People.
be curious. I will be very curious to see if we get a Ragnarok retelling of Mandalorian, or do you think that he's going to put his stylistic choices aside?
No. He's got to put his stamp on it. I think he's the only one that wouldn't be afraid to do it. He's got nothing to lose. A half-hour Star Wars TV show?
Yeah.
I mean,
I look at the Phil Lord, Chris Miller debacle with Solo, and they're so protective of that.
Right.
I mean, Chris Miller and Phil Lord are arguably two of the most powerful creators in Hollywood. I mean, they're the only people who have been able to bridge the gap between computer animation, live action, and go back to computer animation flawlessly.
Right.
And for them to take them off of Solo, that was a gutsy move. That was a controversial move.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they were making it too goofy. And look at Ragnarok. I mean, to be fair, Ragnarok saved Thor because Thor was boring before that.
But there's a difference between trying to fill seats and Disney Plus. Disney's already got their money for this show. I don't think he's going to make, like, no matter what he does, it's not going to make people unsubscribe. You know what I mean? Like, people aren't going to see an episode that he did if it's in his style and just, like, cancel their service right there.
I guess the other question that I have conversely, though, is do you think that he could save the series?
That's what I'm thinking. I think he can inject life and energy and fun into it. I mean, just look at his IG-11 character. How great was that?
Yeah.
You know? It's still, the thing is with Star Wars, it can be funny.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be silly. It can be funny. It doesn't have to Last Jedi with Poe Dameron at the beginning being like, it's okay, I've got a message for his mother or whatever that BS was.
Right.
It can be funny. It doesn't have to be. I agree. I agree.
That's what I think. I think what would be more fun if you had more directors like this who have a definitive style, and if you do episodes that are a single storyline as opposed to serialized, I think it would be fun to go full anthology and just do different styles.
I think that's what Room 104 does best. Have you ever watched that series?
I haven't.
I think that I'll say it gets a little stale after a while, but the overarching concept is it's all taking place in the same hotel room, and each episode has a different director that they offer their style to what happened in that hotel room, and it's actually pretty brilliant. And I think this could work.
Yeah, I feel like the Mandalorian, the character, is such a blank slate that you can stick him in these different types of sort of anthology type stories. Give me him in a Wes Anderson movie, you know?
The Royal Mandalorians.
Why not? You know, put him in like a Coruscant, like a posh sort of environment. You know, the original Star Wars didn't have a lot of camera moves. It was a lot of static shots that were set up and framed like Ralph McQuarrie artwork. Like I feel like treat it like color forms. You know, just set your characters within that frame and then tell your story. I need something more interesting per episode if you're not going to make it serialized.
I agree. But here's the thing that I would say is I think I can inherently trust Jon Favreau.
Right.
I think that I can't think off the top of my head of anything that he's done that I was like, that didn't have heart. That didn't have drive to it. It didn't have humanity in it.
Right.
And so with that, there has to be some sort of redemption or at least direction that this is taking. And who knows? Yeah. That's why I'm on the fence about this. They could come on episode 8 and just blow my eyes out of my head with what they do. That is still a possibility.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's still that spark of hope inside of me that's willing to hold on.
Right.
Because episode 6, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It held my interest, which is saying more than a lot of television shows out there right now. It held my interest. And I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm very excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, 2 more episodes. We'll see.
And I'll be curious this week.
We've been going for an hour and 7 minutes.
I could go for 2 more.
Yeah, no kidding. You do a podcast. Everyone's aware of. You do a couple.
Yes.
Did You Know Disney, which I've been on talking about Galaxy's Edge.
Yes.
And then The Backside of Water, in which you dive into the rich history of Disneyland attractions.
Yes.
And
yes.
Today, I had the opportunity to go on Rise of the Resistance.
Don't even.
But I declined it because I was so busy. That's how my day was today.
Ralph, you made a poor choice. That was a poor choice.
Here's what happened. So I had opportunities to go on Smuggler's Run prior to the land opening, but there's something about Star Wars where I don't just want to go on the ride for a ride test. I want to experience it in the land as a guest.
I think that's 100% fair.
I think I struggled with it a bit.
So wait, was it like a test and adjust? Is that what they were doing, or was it cast preview?
Yeah, test and adjust.
Oh, you never want to go on test and adjust.
Right.
Test and adjust. Ugh. At least from my experience writing on different attractions, I did Toy Story Mania test and adjust, and I was like, this feels like some sort of horrifying Frankenstein of a ride because they didn't adjust.
But I think
it was mostly just test at that point.
I don't know if it's necessarily test and adjust so much as it is cast training, cast hands-on stuff for the actual people who will be running the attraction.
But you want it polished, man. You want it to be the world.
I want to stand in line and wait and experience the queue and all of that stuff. It's it just says Rise of the Resistance ridership. So they're just looking to fill seats. No,
I think that was a very and again, there's a huge difference between a cast preview and test and adjust.
I've been a cast member at Disneyland for a total of 14 and a half years.
Okay.
There is no magic left. There is no magic left, except for Galaxy's Edge. It's the only area in the entire resort I have not been in the back area of.
Ralph, Toontown. Have you ever been to Toontown?
Right.
Magic from top to bottom.
But but I've been in the back area. I've cleaned the toilets. It's just one of those things where it's like, this is great. And for a while, when I first went back and I worked at DCA, I was all excited about Cars Land because that went up while I was gone. But now I work in Cars Land every night, and I pretty much walk the racers track every night. That's still kind of cool because I get to see stuff that other people don't see.
Yeah.
But I want Star Wars. I want Galaxy's Edge to be immersive still.
You still don't know how the sausage is made over there.
Right. I mean, I have a really good idea of how it is because I'm sure they have the same trash compactors back there. They use the same soap and toilet papers, and they still hose down the air. Like, I know how it runs.
But you still have the ability to believe that it's droids doing all that work.
Right. So
no, so are you gonna because on West Coast, are they doing the same thing that they did down in Galaxy or Batu East or whatever they call it?
I have no idea.
Where they're doing the reservations?
I have no clue. I don't know. I know nothing about it. A friend just texted me today and said, ridership until 3 if you want to go. And I could have just gone down there, and I didn't. So there'll be more opportunities, I'm sure. Both me and my wife, Stevie, have decided that, well, at least I have. I told her I'd wait 4 hours. But I don't care. Like, whenever we have a day where I can sign her in, we're going to go down and go inside. If there's a cast preview, great. But I want to kind of just wait in the line and see all the stuff. It's Star Wars. If I have to spend 4 hours in Star Wars, it's still a pretty good day. And the same goes with the Mandalorian.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think that, at least for me, I'm bummed because we are going out in a little over a week.
Yeah.
And so we'll be out there until the 2nd of January playing in the park. And so we're obviously 15 days before, but I am going back out in March for Adventureland Day. So my goal is to be able to get on it at Adventureland Day or the day after. That's my hope. Okay. But after our conversation, I've got my Savi's reservation for this trip, which I am beyond excited for.
And for those of you that didn't hear that episode, that's over on Did You Know Disney?
Yes, check podcast. It out.
And we talk about you and debating on whether or not to get a lightsaber. I think that was more off the air than anything. But we brought it up. Oh,
we talked heavily about it, and
I forgot.
I was so on the fence, and there was something about the conversation that sparked some obsessive need in me to get a lightsaber, and now I'm fully on board. I'm like, $200, who cares?
Yeah, if you want to hear me talk about lightsabers for 20 minutes, check out that episode. And I want to say, I don't know if I remember saying this or not, but if you recall our first conversation about Galaxy's Edge here on the Patreon, I said that the Luke lightsaber wasn't up to standards because it was kind of a brushed metal as opposed to a chrome. And
have they changed that?
They are now chrome.
So are you going to pull the trigger?
We'll see.
Oh.
We'll see.
Oh. Well, Ralph,
it's a tough time. It's a tough time of year to buy myself gifts.
Well, you got a wife. She can give you that gift.
Yeah, we'll see.
The gift of becoming a Jedi.
Oh, I already am one. All right. Well, thanks for joining me. We'll chat soon. We'll get. I want to get an update maybe on the lightsaber.
Yes.
And then when Rise of the Resistance out, I think we already have a standing date to talk about that.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Well, and yeah, I also, I mean, obviously off air, we're going to be continuing our conversation as the Mandalorian goes, but right. I'll be curious to see if your affections change or if the the sentiment that you have currently stays where it's at.
Well, the good news is, as of the time of this episode dropping, we only have to wait 1 day for that next episode.
That's true. That's true. I mean, realistically, 10 total days until this is all done.
Right. And then, not to mention, day after tomorrow, I'm seeing episode 9 of Star Wars.
I have my tickets for 9 p.m.
I have it for 6 p.m.
Oh.
And,
which is 7 my time. So you won't be out by the time that I'm out. So
good.
You won't be able to spoil it for me.
Right. All right. Thanks for coming on
Well,
again.
Thanks for having me on, man.
We're never going to stop talking about Star Wars. But
I know. This is a vicious cycle.
All right. Thanks again. And, yeah, until next time, McClunky.
Thanks, Ralph. Appreciate it, as always.